although it feels like he debuted in the UFC a few days ago, Khamzat Chimaev has actually reached a respectable record of 10-0. And like the majority of contenders in his field, this has resulted in the Russian-born fighter developing a bit of an ego. But what do we really know about his latest rant? And which other MMA headlines should we be paying attention to? For all this and more, stay tuned. First things first, let's take a look at Chimaev's attitude toward Israel Adesanya. For those of you who don't know, Israel Adesanya is the current champion of the UFC middleweight division. But according to Khamzat Chimaev, securing a victory against the last stylebender should be a walk in the park. The UFC star, who is currently roaming through both the welterweight and middleweight divisions of the league, has actually said in the past that he'd rather come up against Adesanya than the ruthless Kamaru Usman, who currently holds the UFC welterweight title. In his defense, this is an incredibly difficult choice to make, considering just how incredible both fighters are. When speaking with Darren Till on the MMA Hour, Chimaev made the decision seem much easier than we thought it would be for him though, as he believes his skills will be far better suited in a bout against Adesanya. Why, you might ask? Well, according to Chimaev, this has everything to do with the fact that Adesanya is a striker at heart. He keeps his distance from his opponents and uses his fantastic dexterity to come out on top by dodging hits and responding with his own meteoric punches. But take him to the ground and you find yourself in a much better scenario, as the last stylebender has next to no experience in the field of wrestling. Chimaev went a step further by swearing that a matchup between him and Adesanya would see him squeezing his head off, resulting in easy money and a title to boot. But this is a lot easier said than done, and it feels like Chimaev is talking out of turn. Israel Adesanya has been described by many as one of the greatest fighters in the history of the sport, probably because he comes with the league's best kickboxing pedigrees and hits like a truck on fire. The man has a perfect record of 11-0 in the middleweight division, after all, and has fought next to every contender that has proven themselves to be worthy. Remember, 11 unbeaten wins qualifies as the second longest win streak in the history of the division, which is by far one of the most difficult classes to stay champion in, something that Adesanya has done since he first lifted the belt in March of 2019. That being said, the last stylebender did throw fans for a loop when he came up against Robert Whittaker at UFC 271, which saw him clinching victory from the New Zealand-born fighter after a nail-biter of a decision was made by the judges. Chimaev even referred to his fight in his interview saying, "The guy he fought last time, he's not a wrestler, he took us back." And if wrestling is really Adesanya's weakness, which it very might well be, then there's no doubt that some wrestling prowess from Whittaker would have caused the judges to award more points to him and possibly secure the championship. So is it really so far-fetched for Chimaev to believe that he'll have Adesanya's number if they end up facing off against one another in the future? It's hard to say. As for now, it looks like Khamzat Chimaev will be sticking to welterweight bouts though. It may be true that he's won both of his appearances in the middleweight division, but that's a full 9 bouts less than the defending champion. But his strategy of taking Adesanya to the ground is a rather risky one. The best kickboxer in the league isn't going to allow you to tie him down easily, and considering how Chimaev would have to go for his legs for the takedown, which is dangerous to say the least, he might just be better suited for the welterweight division until a better strategy can be formulated. He does have a lot of unfinished business in the 170-pound division, after all, especially with Gilbert Burns waiting in the wings. According to reports, the two fighters are set to knock gloves at UFC 273 on the 9th of April. The real question was whether this bout was going to change. As of right now, it looks like things are back on track though, with Burns training hard to get the better of Chimaev in the octagon. He recently revealed that he has hired 2 stocky Russian wrestlers to help him prepare for what Chimaev will be bringing to the table. And when asked who these wrestlers were, he refused to disclose their identities. Suffice to say, Burns has some tricks up his sleeves. But that didn't stop Chimaev from laughing at the prospect of Burns out-wrestling him. In fact, Chimaev has some mean-spirited things to say about the Brazilian fighter. When reacting to the statement from Burns that wrestling would be his #1 priority going into training for the fight, Chimaev said that this was nothing short of being comical. "How the f*** are you gonna learn wrestling in 2 months?" he exclaimed. He also referred to the fact that Burns had no idea how he's going to approach the fight either, making his wrestling training something of a bandage on a wound that requires stitches. In his own words, "Maybe we're gonna wrestle, maybe we're gonna grapple, maybe we're gonna come in with strikes. He doesn't know what I'm gonna do." This wasn't the end of the tirade though. Chimaev also mentioned that the majority of the fighters in his gym have previously trained with Burns, and he's sure that Burns knows just how easy it's been for him to beat each and every one of his sparring partners. Suffice to say, no amount of outside wrestling assistance is going to help Burns get the upper hand on Chimaev. At least, that's what the Russian-born fighter seems to believe. If you were to ask us, he's become a little too big for his boots, something that happens to quite a few young talents when they make a name for themselves in the octagon. He's just throwing out too many words at the moment, causing neutral fans in the league to turn against him and hope for an upset victory in Burns' favor. In other UFC news, it sounds like Conor McGregor is back making headlines. And in true McGregor style, this involved the breaking of a few Dublin laws. For those of you who don't know, Notorious was arrested by Irish police on Tuesday after he was found sweating behind the wheel of his Bentley Continental GT. Why was he stopped by the law enforcement though? Well, according to the police report, McGregor had been driving rather recklessly, resulting in him being arrested for being a danger on the road. It also looks like McGregor will have a difficult time defending against the charge when his court date comes up in a week, especially considering how the majority of his actions were caught on camera. This video quickly spread on social social media and showed McGregor swerving through traffic in an erratic manner while being chased by the Dublin police. The section of the road featured in the video was also just 3 kilometers away from where McGregor was eventually arrested, showing far more than enough evidence to secure conviction. In other words, he has a feeling McGregor will have to plead guilty when his court date finally arrives, but we doubt this will have any effect on his return to the UFC after breaking his leg against Dustin Poirier last year. The offense of driving dangerously in Dublin comes with a slap on the wrist and a fine for the legendary mixed martial artist, which we assume to be around $5,500. Suffice to say, Notorious is going to be just fine. Last but not least, let's talk about the formal request of Nate Diaz. Although fans have been calling for McGregor and Diaz to face off against one another in the future, it sounds like this will be nothing more than a dream left to wither. This is due to the fact that Diaz is now apparently formally requested to be released from his current contract with the UFC. Remember, he has just one more fight to participate in according to the terms and conditions of the deal, but since the league has been struggling to find an opponent for him over the last few months, it goes without saying that Diaz is getting a little stir-crazy. This is why the 36-year-old California native is asking to be let go. This way he'll be able to do whatever he chooses in the future without having to fall back on the league. That being said, this could very well be nothing more than a negotiation tactic used to get more money from the UFC. And there you have it. Everything you might have wanted to know about the current state of the Ultimate Fighting Championship. What do you think of Chimaev's harsh words though? And who will you be watching this year? Feel free to let us know in the comment section down below.